Going down now to the app level. Enterprise to apps, right? So at the app level, one of the things we did that was hugely valuable was introduce the concept of the tree view, showing the hierarchy of your solution. So that you could, did I lose my mic? So that you can quickly see how the solution hierarchy is defined and how the different templates relate to each other. In addition to that, we introduced the streamlined create over on the far right, that create the top level. So if you think about it, when you're building your solutions, when you're introducing it and deploying it to clients, you have many instances of your milestone template, many instances of your initiative or project template, handful of instances of your business unit template, but you only have one of the top level portfolio. And we used to require that you add it to your left nav bar create that top level item, then very quickly go remove it from that left nav so that someone didn't create multiple versions of that top level. Don't have to do that anymore. Now within the app, you can create that top level directly from the app. Let's see, another thing that we did is when you open up from an instance and you want to work on the template and you click on View Template, it used to bring you back to the Summary tab of the template, and you had to navigate over to the tab that you actually wanted to work on. Now, if you're on the, what is that one, Milestone tab, and you click View Template, you're going to come into the template and land on the Milestone tab. So just some little things that help make it a little more efficient when you're working with the solution. Defining the hierarchy on the Data tab. So previously, you had to add a list section to every template in order to have hierarchy in your solution. Even if you really didn't intend for that list to be visible to your users, now you can define a child type within the app, and within the template on the app, and it defines the hierarchy that way. All of these things have helped make it a little bit easier as an app admin to manage and maintain your solution. I'll point out that the Data tab, what the usability block here is talking about, the Data tab at the bottom is anchored. Let's talk about that a little bit more. So when you are working on a template, now we separated out the areas of focus. So your edit mode, you have your layout edit mode where you're setting up sections on the page. You have your configure edit mode, which allows you to define the settings for each section. And then you have the data edit mode, which allows you to define business rules, define attributes, those types of things. Previously, those were 3 separate modes. Whichever mode you were in took over your whole page. Now, when you're looking at the data mode, it anchors across the bottom, so you can be looking at that and making changes to your data while at the same time changing the edit, the layout, the settings on the other sections. So that gives you some capability there. We also started to introduce some new controls to the templates. The ability to put an image on the page that you let an end user load. Previously, you could put an image on a page, but that was something the app admin defined and said what the picture on that image would be. One of our clients, I think Steve, wherever Steve is, was one of the instigators of providing us with the ability to let end users load. They have schematics that they were loading as part of their business case, and they needed to put that image directly in that image block. So it was a great addition to the product and something that we embraced and made available to everyone else. Another thing that we did with our layouts is gave you the flexibility to define the height. So previously, when you set up a section, you could make it a static height, or you could tell it to grow to the size of the content. So if it's a tabular view with 100 rows, the section would grow to fit 100 rows. This year, we added the fit to page capability. So the section will expand to the page, fill the page, and if you have additional content that doesn't show up in the view of the page, it'll lazy load past those additional items so that you can scroll to all of your content without losing the context of the rest of the page. It's a nice addition there. So a handful of additions to the layouts and sections. We also continue to evolve the different custom sections that we're exposing to you. So many of you who have been around a while know that we have utilities that we exposed out through the util server. And you can access them through this really ugly URL string that lets you customize some data in the URL string. It's great. It gives you some visualizations that you wouldn't have otherwise have had. What we've tried to do, though, is bring those things over into the product. So the progress bar, oh, did I go back? No, I'm still in the right place. Okay. The progress bar is one of the things that we brought over. Now fully configurable by an app admin. You point at the stages that you want the progress bar to represent. You can set the icons. You can set the color coding, all of that directly in the solution. You no longer have to have a crazy URL string defining all of that in one field. I also called out here, we had a client request. We had the details card had 10 attributes available to you. It now has 15. So one of our clients asked for 15, they got 15. So, so we will continue to evolve these custom sections and give you greater visualizations and greater capabilities fully in the product so that you have the autonomy to manage them yourself rather than coming to Shibumi for help with those. All of those things have then allowed us to mature apps and modules. Mark mentioned it earlier. Bob mentioned that we've got a couple sessions where we're focusing on tomorrow. I think it's governance, RAID log, and resource management. These are a variety. Sometimes it's the full set of templates you need. Sometimes it's a recipe that tells you how to set it up. We have established a set of best practices, established a set of well thought out techniques for how to handle some of these requirements. They may not match your requirement exactly, but it's a starting point for you to work with that you can then assess your requirements and pull into. And to Mark's point in the previous session, the more standard we can get these things, the more standard our broad client base across different verticals, our partners within their solutions adopt these things, the better we're going to get that particular feature. It allows us to pull some intelligence, some data, assess what's working, what's not. So the more standard we can get, the better. And we want you all to have the benefit of our experience and our best practices with these modules. So we'll be hitting on those a little bit more as well. All right, so moving into who engages with the solution. Starting at the top, the very first thing that you do when you're working with Shibumi is bring in data, or intake of content. Several different things have been improved in this area. First of all, the sidebar create, probably one of my most exciting new features this year. It used to be if you needed to add a milestone, and your program was a hierarchy of portfolio, region, functional area, project, milestone. You had to navigate down through all of those levels to get to the point where you could add the milestone. Not anymore. Now you can, from the Create New button, add a milestone and it'll say which project would you like to add it to. And it'll prompt you, much like the association list works now, where you get a list of the existing projects, you can search and find the project you're looking for. It'll create the milestone in the right project without you having to actually navigate the whole way down. Really, really nice, nice addition there. The other thing about the Create New, the sidebar Create, is that the layout of your add item dialog is completely configurable. You can define what details you'd like to include in what format on the page to collect the information. By the way, you can also do that with the Create button that's over on the far right of the screen. So with the Create button, I don't have to identify the parent. So if I was creating an initiative from the sidebar, I would need to tell it the parent so that it would know where to place it in my solution. If I've got a button on my project or on my work stream and I'm creating, it already knows the parent. It's going to use the existing item as the parent, and it's going to create the initiative directly under there. In both cases, though, I have the benefit of the layout of the page being very configurable. I can define it to collect the information I need. In fact, I took advantage of this slide to point out a couple other things that you can do on those forms. We also introduced the concept of a single attachment attribute. So previously, when you attached content in Shibumi, you did it to a list. And it was great. You had a collection of all your collateral, your details. But we often got the request, I need to make sure that the business case has been attached to the initiative. I need to be able to check. And I couldn't check that there was, there's 5 documents. I couldn't figure out which one of those 5 attachments was my business case. Now I can define an attribute as my business case attachment attribute. When the user populates it by putting an attachment on that attribute, I now can use the isEmpty expression, not to get even farther in the weeds on you guys. I can check to see if that attribute actually holds a value to confirm that the business case has actually been added to the initiative. So single attachment field. The other one I pointed out there is our name value icon. Our icon name value pick list has some new icons that you can select. We have the Harvey ball icons that will progress the circle from a quarter complete to a half complete to 3/4 complete. So those are available too. Another small little addition this year. Moving on from intake to probably the most, what I would say almost the most well, it wasn't disruptive because you didn't have to adopt it right away. The biggest change to how users interact with forms in Shibumi. We introduced the concept of a new form type. It has an explicit save, first and foremost. Many times in the past when users were changing values, especially when they had business rules that were triggering other things to happen, they weren't confident that their data had been updated and saved. We saved it real time. They didn't have that same sense of confidence. They wanted to be able to click an event. I want to save this. I want to cancel this and have everything roll back. I just made 5 changes. I need to be able to back out of that. So explicit save and cancel was a big addition. We previously in form sections, you had a choice. You could have a single column of fields or you could have 2 columns of fields. Now you have effectively 12 columns across your palette. So you can lay out the page in a completely configurable pattern. You can have one field that fills your full height, other fields stacked next to it. You can put, and you guys can't see it at all on this screen, separator lines in between things. You can put header sections on the page. You can have persistent help. Previously, you had to hover over a field to see any help on how to complete the form. Now you have persistent help on the page. And even better, the persistent help is dynamic. So perhaps for initiative A, that has a value of over 500, I need help telling me that certain fields need to be completed or that there's guidance on how to complete that initiative's business case. But initiative B, that's over 1 million, there's a different set of guidance. That persistent help can be dynamic and react to the content to give you the right information. So really exciting addition to the layouts and the configurability that you have with this new form sections. If any of you have not yet taken on the task of starting to migrate your forms, let me know. We're happy to do a session where we give you ideas on some of the ways to lay out. Probably the best part of these new forms is that you get to use your full real estate. So you don't have just extra white space that was trapped with our previous form sections. You now can use the full page and really optimize the layout as much as possible. In addition to forms, we have made a big investment in the tables section. So the tables section is our future. It's a really exciting, very performant way to load a lot of data. So previously you had lists and views. We are not, and I'll be very blunt and honest, we're not investing in lists and views anymore. We're investing in the table section. It does some very cool things for us. First of all, notice that when we group content, in a list and a view, if I grouped content, each level of the group took up a column in my section. When I group content in the table section, it collapses under one column. It's really clean, more efficient, gives us more real estate to play with. Another thing that you can do with the table section, you can pin the columns. We got that request all the time. Could I pin my leftmost columns? Could I pin a right column? So you can pin the columns. Another thing, anybody new to Shibumi who's used Excel will find the sorting and filtering of our table section intuitive. It's exactly the way it works in Excel, where you click on the column header, it prompts you with the existing values, it lets you sort and filter in that order. We have the full capability to add and remove columns. We have the ability to include metric, a single metric time period as one of your columns. And then which time period that's displaying can be dynamic. So here's something we got all the time. I have 12 columns representing my 12 months, and I want it sometimes to show this year, sometimes to show last year. We had some crazy things we would do in the past to try to give you that capability. Now we set up 12 columns, we set them dynamically to reflect whether you're looking at this year or last year's data. What's not yet here, we don't have the metric time frame concept where you can say, I want to see this year with a column that then aggregates the quarters and then another column that aggregates the years. That's coming. We're going to be, I'll talk more about that tomorrow, but that's coming with table sections. Not yet here. The other thing to be very clear that you can't do with table sections is inline edit. So everybody loves the inline editing of lists and views. We all do. The challenge with that, and the reason why this table section is so much more performant, if I have a list or a view, I need to say, okay, this cell is a date cell. I need to provide a date control for that one. The one next to it's a numeric cell, and it needs 2 decimal places. And the one next to it is a multi-line text field and needs to wrap. We had to bring in so much information about each cell and every row that impacted the performant capabilities of the list and views. We're not bringing that in with the table section. You get the data in its standard data format. In order to edit in our table section today, you can open the preview pane. And your summary tab, you can edit directly on the summary tab in the preview pane. Tomorrow, I'll talk about some of the other things we're going to do there. But today, you've got the preview pane available to you. Let's see, did I miss anything? The table section is awesome. We're really excited about this as our future. Okay. One of the things that we had talked about last year was the many-to-many associations. We've made that easier now. When you set up, you could always do it. We've made it easier with the underlying table structure in place. It allows you to define the relationships when they are many-to-many dependencies and not just a one-to-many dependency. Or sorry, not necessarily dependency, although it can be. Association is probably the better way to say that. And then we took a step towards mobile with the tab settings that we've introduced. So imagine, if you will, that you open up your work breakdown structure on your mobile phone and you're looking at a Gantt chart on your phone. That is not going to be an especially successful review. It's really hard to see something like that on a mobile device. So what we've done with the tab settings is we've said this tab is visible on a desktop, on a mobile device, or on both. And it lets you decide and plan the experience for users that are going to be using the mobile device. So you may decide that on your mobile device, rather than the Gantt chart, I'll just show you 3 columns of key information, something like that. This, again, will come more into play tomorrow when I talk about our windshield view of the product roadmap. So the last category are those that analyze the data. And I just mentioned work breakdown structure. So here we have one of the cool new sections that we introduced this year, was a very powerful Gantt section. A couple things to point out. First and foremost, across the top, we gave you some buttons that just help with visualization, expanding, collapsing groups, those types of things to make that really easy. We have provided you with the view of your milestones and tasks but we've also provided the ability to make this, it's not just a view, it's actually interactive. So directly from here, I can click a plus button to add another milestone or another task within an activity. So you have that flexibility. When we initially introduced this, there was a sort order based on the dates. So it was always kind of, you had this nice left to right view of the dates on the Gantt chart, which makes sense sometimes. Other times you might want to see your Gantt chart content organized by work stream. So we gave you more flexibility with configuring how the Gantt will be sorted. Again, sticking with the interactive theme, on the Gantt itself, you can draw the dependencies. I can draw the dependency that says this item is dependent on me, or I am dependent on it. Depending on which way I draw that dependency, it establishes the direction. And then lastly, much like the table section, if I want to edit any content for any of the items on the Gantt, I can open the preview pane directly from the Gantt so that I can edit additional detail from the preview pane. Really great new Gantt capability. Still has kind of the color coding of status, still has all of that content in there as well. We also introduced this year the page level filter capability. This is especially useful when you have a page that has multiple sections on it, and you want to set one setting that is a filter applied to all of the sections. So we introduced the capability. It's a bar across the top. Not sure how well you all can see that. Bar across the top, and you had a couple key options. You could define a date filter, or you could define a pick list filter. Those filters could be a single value or multiple values. And those filters could also have be required or have a default value set for them. So this is a start down a path. We'll be talking through some more of the capability that we're going to add to this tomorrow. But yeah, be giving you that top level filter to apply to all of your sections. So I missed anything there. And then lastly, we have, again, brought what was a chart over on the util server that you expose through the URLs or through a view section. We've brought into Shibumi as a chart section completely configurable by an app admin. One of the big reasons is demonstrated here. So we would have these health charts. Show me everything that was in stage 1 that was green or yellow or red or completed in blue. Our charts naturally, the out-of-the-box charts, will use the enterprise colors. Think back to my first slide with the little pills of the colors. Naturally, our charts use those colors. So you might have green items that are shown in brown. It just wasn't especially intuitive. So providing you with the ability to specify the colors for your data series was one driver for us providing these charts. As I mentioned, that was always available on the util server. We've brought it into Shibumi. And beyond just bringing that single chart in, this chart section actually has 10 different representations. It can be this stacked bar with a target line. It could be a bar without the stack. It could be a horizontal bars. It could be an area chart. 10 different options for how you might represent that, all with one section. Okay, and so the very last thing that I'm going to point out on this slide has nothing to do with the chart. And many of you may not care at all, but I can tell you that our international team cares passionately about this last enhancement. We now inherit the date format from your machine. So if you would prefer to see 22 September 2022 instead of September 22, 2022, we will now do that for you. This is an enhancement. This is an enhancement we've been talking about for a while, and we've introduced it recently. So very excited to get that one off of the please add list for us. So that takes us through the rear view in a very detailed level. Thank you for bearing with me as I did that. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mark and let him step through a demo that puts all of this to life and really a little more exciting to see it all come together. There you go.
All right. Everybody hear me okay? Good. All right. So what I wanted to do before I jump into a live demo is just bring this slide up again to talk about the modules. It's so cool to see the roadmap deck because, man, you guys were busy in development this year. There's a ton of stuff that we did, and it's all awesome. I'm sure all of the app administrators and kind of power users in here really appreciate it, as we do. But what we've been trying to do more and more over the last 9-12 months is, rather than having this big box of Legos, we've used this analogy before, a big box of Legos, a big bunch of capabilities that you can use as customers to deliver some kind of strategic program, to solve some kind of business problem that you're having. We want to start packaging it up into logical collections of capabilities. What we're calling those things are apps, and we're going to have a series, and we have a series of apps that are available that really serve as starting points for everybody to use when you choose Shibumi and we start working with you. But if I were to drill down into those apps, really what an app is it's a collection of modules. And modules are really what we are standardizing on to provide capabilities to our customers. So rather than having some cool chart that Kim just walked through, that chart may be part of a resource management module to give you insight into how your resources are being leveraged over time. So all that great capability that we just saw, we're using it, but we're packaging it up into apps and more specifically into modules. So you'll hear us talk about this more and more in the future. So what I thought we could do is step through a couple of these right now with a live product demo, just to show you how this all comes to life in the application itself. Let's see, what are we going to do? So let's pick a couple of these modules to really drill down and look at. And we'll definitely hit on idea intake. I want to show you scenario management. That's a newer one. I think there's a lot of interest in the crowd on that one. And then we'll definitely touch on roadmaps and touch on resource management just briefly, just to give you a sense of how we're doing that. All right, so let's get started. So I am looking at the SPM app. So this app is very much purpose-built for, or purpose-configured for the SPM Magic Quadrant that Gartner has been talking about a lot these days. What I've done was drilled into one particular program, this transformation program. This one, we're trying to transform the business. We're identifying a set of benefits that we want to deliver. We have some targets that we have set for ourselves. So this is what we're all getting oriented towards. What I wanted to look at straight away before we even get much further is jumping over to the roadmap. So this is really talking about that Gantt charting capability that Kim showed in the presentation. Whoa, those colors are blinding in this. It doesn't look like that here. But this is showing off a couple of different things. So the first thing that it's showing off is the ability to start to filter with these page level filters. So if I were to expand all of this, I'll just click expand all, there is a ton of information that we're showing in this Gantt. We're showing the work stream, the initiative, the work plan underneath the initiative, the benefit timelines, the cost timelines. I don't think anybody would actually do this in practice, but what we're illustrating here is you can plot anything with dates into one of these views to start to visualize it in different ways. But what you can also do is using the page level filters, start to filter down the information. So boom, what I just instantly did was filter out the benefits and the costs that I were seeing in the timeline. What you can also do here is, we've talked a lot about dependencies. Dependencies take a ton of different forms. It's not just milestone to milestone. It's not just work plan dependencies. You know, I'll touch on in a bit benefit dependencies. That's another key one for us. But what you can do right within the Gantt is simply, you know, drag a line between two diamonds, and I've created a dependency by doing that. And behind the scenes, I've created an association. Actually, a lot of stuff just happened behind the scenes. But that's all you have to do in the UI to bring it to life. OK, so let's go back now to the initiative pipeline and look at that for a second. And this is just a bit about the story. So cost transformation. We're trying to identify a bunch of initiatives to deliver some benefit to the business. We have our targets that we have set for ourselves, but that white gap, which is actually a gray gap, but white for you, is our shortfall, right? So we haven't identified enough benefit for each of these work streams. We need to get some more ideas loaded into the system. But where do I go? Where's my plus button in the old Shibumi? Where's the one section in the one tab that includes that little blue plus to let me add a new initiative into the system? I don't know, but what I do know is over on the left-hand side, I can hit plus, and there it is. Can you believe it? It's just that easy. So here is this new intake form that Ken was mentioning. Kim, I'm getting Ken and Kim mixed up here. Ken didn't mention it. That allows me to identify a new initiative and drop it into the system. And the first question we ask is where? Where do you want to put this thing? So back to Kim's point, you have to drill into the spot that you want to create your initiative or whatever it is, and then hit the plus. You just go over to the left. I want to choose IT, and I'm off and running, and I add whatever information I need to in this form. We can, as Kim mentioned, we can design these and put any fields we want into them. There's a lot of control now that we have about spacing and organizing the form and making it just a lot more usable for the end user to be able to submit these ideas in. So I'm going to hit cancel and jump back here. So the other thing that I wanted to show was, let's say a lot of people submitted ideas into the system. We got a ton of ideas in our backlog, and there's a business case defined for them. But we have to now start making decisions on what do we want to invest in and what we don't want to invest in. So this is where scenarios really can be handy. And so this is such a great example of one of these modules because there's a ton of platform capability we needed to draw on to really make scenarios work within Shibumi. And there's a ton of capabilities that we've had and that we've just released over the last year that made this happen. But this all brings it together. And there's a ton of logic and configuring that has been done already for you. So the scenario module is kind of off the shelf, ready to go. Of course, we expect you're going to configure it and add some changes to it, but a lot of that work has been done already. So really what it is this idea that you have a big long list of initiatives, and you may want to do some what-if analysis. So what if we approve this set and stop doing this set? What does that do for us? What benefits do we get back to the business? Okay, that's cool. What if we do this other set of initiatives and then stop this set of initiatives? How does that compare to the first scenario? In this example, we've defined 3, and you can see the performance up on top. Each is delivering. And it's pretty obvious. Our demo data makes it pretty simple. Number 2 is the choice that we would probably want to go with. But we can now drill into number 2 and just give you a sense of what it is. How does it work? So on the left-hand side, we have a bunch of things that we are not going to do. We're either going to not approve them from the planning stage into execution, or we're going to stop doing them. They might already have been approved into execution, and we've decided they're not performing as we expected. With Shu going, we got the data, we can make these types of decisions about the initiatives. So these are the ones we're not doing, these are the ones we are doing, and it's obvious we're performing way better than baseline. Baseline meaning the already approved set that we've funded up to this point. But the problem that we're dealing with here is if we were to approve all of these initiatives, given their timing that we've defined, we just can't do it with the amount of resources that we have available to us. There were 876 hours overutilized, so there's just no way that we could truly execute on this set of initiatives. By the way, a thing to note too is these 3 cards that you see up on top. In the demo for this example that we're showing, we really cared about maximizing that benefit, maximizing the value we're delivering, and making sure that we can actually do it with the resources we have. We fully expect that our customers, our partners may have different care abouts. It might not be benefit and value. There's other things that you want to optimize for, which is totally fine. There would be different numbers up here that you're using for comparisons purposes. But for us, these 3, and this is the problem, 876. So let's scroll down a little bit and see where the issues are. So this is starting to play into another module. Some of these modules play off each other. So the scenario management module needs information from the resource management module to be able to calculate these overages that we're looking at right here. And we can see that these 2 initiatives are problematic, right? We can't deliver on them with these timelines. I can even open them up. By the way, we're using Gantt again here, notice. So we're taking advantage of all of this platform capability in different ways. So I open these up and I see, oh, okay, so these are the milestones that we want to execute on in this initiative. These are the benefits that we expect to deliver. Sorry, where am I? And then if I scroll down far enough, these are the 2 resources and the timing that we need those resources that are problematic. We don't have enough people filling the developer role and the business analyst role at this point to be able to execute on this initiative. All right, okay, we're still in a scenario. We're not changing any live data, but what if I do this? I start dragging stuff around. So what if I drag this out way far? Maybe that's probably too far. But it corrected everything. So if we delay that initiative by whatever it was, 6 months, then the timing of the resources and the availability of the resources all lines up. And we're all green across the board. So we can actually do it now. But we haven't changed the actual dates. So some of these could be already in execution mode, and you don't want to be changing people's dates as you're playing around with your scenario. So I haven't actually done anything yet. I'm still in this what-if world, making changes. So what we can then do in the scenarios is a couple of different ways we can do this. One is we can have one simple, easy button that says, make this baseline, make this reality. And all of my changes and approvals and disapprovals all get saved into the actual data that we're tracking in Shibumi. And we thought this would be so easy for people. You got one simple button, make it simple and easy and click. And everybody we showed this to have been like, no, that's not the way that we do things. There's a process in and of itself to approve all of this stuff to baseline. So this is not the way it usually gets implemented, but this is the way we demo it because it's happy pass. So that's the resource module, the scenario module within the application. So let's go back at this point and look at another one of these. And I wanted to drill into an initiative at this point. So let's, I favorited one that I commonly drill into. So here we are in an initiative. So this one, you know what? I want to move this back. This one is in the execution phase of its life cycle. I'm an administrator, by the way, so I can move stuff wherever I want. Not many people don't get to do that. But this one's in execution. We've already gone through the planning phase. We've defined the business case. We've captured our costs, our benefits, the general plan around how we want to execute on this one. And if I go over to financials, I'll see that here. So these are those financial costs and benefits. And going back to this idea of dependencies we've been talking about today, what we can then do is, as we define these things, I'm using, oh, by the way, so this is a new view that all of this stuff is getting displayed through. I can just click on the row, and then that slides out the preview pane for me. So I get all this rich detail about that line item that I saw in the view. And so this is showing me a lot of the same information, but I can also see here the dependency that we've defined. This is just one. And so what we're saying here is that we're not going to get this client data benefit, which is it's a financial benefit we expect to receive, but we don't get it until we implement this integration module. And there's a work item in the work plan that defines that and allows us to track, are we on track? Are we going to be able to do it in time? And if it starts to slide and slip, or it has a bunch of dependencies on its own that start moving, this is going to be at risk, this dependency that we're looking at. And this one, again, it's this one integration module, but you can have many different dependencies, right? There could be a lot of different other initiatives that have to get done in order for us to get this benefit, other assumptions that we've made around costing. This could even include back to what Bob was talking about in the keynote. What if this has something to do with energy costs? That could be a dependency. And so that totally throws off the ROI if those energy costs start going up or down. So these dependencies are really broad, is the idea behind it. So if I go over to the work plan now, this is where I can track how are we doing. Are we really hitting on all of the activities that we needed to get done to make sure that those business benefits are actually going to be realized? Oh boy, the color is just so washed out here. So this is the reason I wanted to show this off is it's an example of integration. The cool thing about this is integrating into Jira. We're pulling epics from Jira over into Shibumi. And really for many of our integrations, when we integrate into the other system, there's a stub item inside Shibumi that allows us to store information about what it's pointing to in the other system. So what I mean is an epic in Jira is now connected to this diamond, which is a Jira epic in Shibumi. So we can define dependencies between the Jira epic, between the benefits that we've just looked at. And so oops, sorry about that. I gotta go. I'm sorry, guys. So what this means, though, is so the integration is bidirectional. Somebody makes a change in Jira, and that date slides back. Well, that would edit or update the date of this item inside Shibumi because they're connected to each other. There's a benefit dependent on this epic. So all of a sudden, our whole benefit timeline is shifting as a result of that change that was made within Jira. So this is what really kind of brings it to life. Okay, so then one of the last things that I wanted to show is resources. So we've talked about this a little bit, but I think this is a good example of associations inside Shibumi. So there is a list. Usually it's up at either the program or the PMO level, and that list is all of the different resources we have available to this initiative. And by the way, when we say resource, it's not a person or a role strictly. A resource could be anything. Another one that we commonly use is a system. So there's a system resource, and this initiative needs that system. Maybe this initiative is increasing usage of the system by 100 users. Well, a constraint on that system is the number of licenses we own. We only own 50. And we want to add 100 users on there. So that's a constraint that we can flag to tell you that there's a problem there. In this case, it is roles, though. So these are all of the different roles that we need to use as we're executing on this initiative. Back to the scenarios, the only reason that we know we were overutilized is because we had this information captured at the initiative level. And so what I can do here is just hit our cool new plus button over on the top right. We've designed a form. We have total control over how this form looks and operates. And I can select an additional resource that I need to use for this initiative. So I'll click the pull down, and I'm not just typing somebody's or a role name in here. This is a link back to our global list of resources that we're tracking and managing. And because it's that global list, all of the references from all of the initiatives are pointing back to the one role. And so that's how we can know you got 50 initiatives asking for this role's time. There's only 2 people in the role. Whoa, we got a problem. We don't have enough people to do this. So I can, somebody's been playing with the data. I'm going to choose that one. Go for it. So we need a gopher for this initiative. And you know what? I don't want to fill in any dates. Maybe I don't know, or more typically, I'm lazy. So I'll just add that role into the system. And you notice we do have some dates that automatically populated in here for us. So this is another thing that we're baking into a lot of our apps and our modules, a lot of defaults that just get set for you, and you don't really have to think about it. In this case, the defaults came from the start and the do of the initiative that we defined. And of course, you can click in and you can edit those defaults, but it just serves as just a little bit of a usability thing for the end users to run through data entry a little bit simpler. The last thing that I wanted to touch on here is associations on associations. So get ready for inception here. So the idea here is this is a project manager for the deploy new logistics technology. We need a PM for this initiative. The role is totally overutilized. We got a problem here. But what I can additionally do is associate an individual to fill that role within the initiative. This is another association that we can make to this association and start to track the availability of not only the role, but now the person that we filled the role. So just another example of how you can take advantage of all of this stuff. And that is the last thing I wanted to touch on. That was a rear view.